Amy Bradley is missing. I was absolutely obsessed with this case. It's almost 3 decades old. This young woman goes on vacation with her own family. They're all staying in the same stateroom. And between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, she is gone, vanished.
On the morning of March 24, 1998, a father stepped onto a cruise ship balcony to check on his daughter. She had been sitting there just 30 minutes before. Now the chair was empty. Her sandals were still on the floor, her shirt still draped over the railing. She was gone, somewhere between the open ocean and the docking port of Curaçao, and no one on that ship had heard a single thing. This is the story of Amy Lynn Bradley. Amy Lynn Bradley was 23 years old, and she was the kind of person who made every room feel louder and warmer the moment she stepped into it. She had grown up in Petersburg, Virginia, in a tight, loving family. Her father, Ron, her mother, Iva, and her younger brother, Brad, who was not just her sibling, but genuinely her closest friend. They were the kind of family that actually liked each other.
We flew down to Puerto Rico, and then we got to the terminal, and then Amy and Brad followed on a different flight and came down, and we were very excited about this opportunity.
The kind that laughed at dinner and called each other just to talk. The kind that goes on vacation together because they want to, not because they feel obligated. Amy was an athlete through and through. She had earned a basketball scholarship to Longwood University, where she graduated with a degree in physical education. She coached swim team. She was a certified lifeguard. She carried herself with the easy physical confidence of someone who had always known what her body could do. She was outgoing and social and funny. And she had 4 tattoos that had become almost as recognizable as her face. A Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball on her left shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, and a small blue-green gecko near her navel. People who knew her said she was the kind of person you remembered, the kind you did not forget once you had met her. She had just graduated college and was standing at the beginning of everything. A new job in computer consulting was waiting for her back in Virginia. She had plans to go back to school for a master's degree in sports psychology. She had a bulldog named Bailey at home who she adored. She was not someone without direction or purpose. She was someone with a full, specific future laid out in front of her, someone who was actively moving toward it. The cruise had been a gift from her father's company, a celebration, really, of a chapter closing and a new one beginning. The Rhapsody of the Seas left San Juan, Puerto Rico, on March 21, 1998, sailing toward the Caribbean islands. The Bradleys had been enjoying it the way families do, when they finally get away from ordinary life. Easy and unhurried, with nothing to do but be together. Amy had actually been a little nervous beforehand. Her mother Eva later recalled that Amy was apprehensive about the size of the ship and the open ocean around it, which was almost funny, given that she had spent years of her life in swimming pools coaching other people through water. But she had gone, and the trip had been good, and on the night of March 23rd, the ship was sailing from Aruba toward its next port in Curaçao. That night, Amy and her brother Brad went to the ship's Mardi Gras party at the nightclub on board. They danced, they drank, they stayed out the way you do when you are young and the night feels long and consequence-free. They spent a lot of that evening with the ship's live band, Blue Orchid. One of the band members, a bass player named Alistair Douglas, who everyone on that ship knew by the nickname Yellow, danced with Amy for a significant part of the night. Cruise ship security cameras captured footage of the two of them together on the dance floor in the early hours of the morning. It was the last video footage anyone ever found of Amy Bradley. Brad headed back to the family cabin at around 3:35 in the morning. The last thing he said to his sister before he went was that he loved her. She came back to the cabin not long after him. The ship's electronic door lock recorded her key card entry at 3:40 a.m. She went straight out to the balcony. She had her lighter and her cigarettes. She sat down in the deck chair in the warm Caribbean night and looked out at the dark water. Her father Ron woke up around 5:30 that morning, glanced out through the balcony door, and saw her there in the chair, resting quietly. He went back to sleep without concern. At 6 a.m., the chair was empty.
She wasn't there, and she wasn't in the bed. And so he sat up and could see the ship was not moving. And decided, well, I'm going to go look for her.
Her sandals were still sitting on the balcony floor exactly where she had left them. Her shirt was still there. Nothing else. No note. No signs of any struggle. Nothing knocked over or broken. Just a door left open to the morning air and a chair where his daughter had been sitting 30 minutes before. Ron Bradley raised the alarm immediately. And here is the detail that the family has never been able to move past. Even as they were reporting Amy missing, passengers were still being allowed to disembark in Curaçao. The full ship search did not begin until around noon. 6 hours had gone by. The port had been open the whole time. People and goods and vehicles had moved in and out freely while Amy was already gone. The Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard searched the surrounding waters for 4 days. They found absolutely nothing. No body, no personal items, no sign that anyone had entered the ocean from that ship. The FBI joined the investigation the following day. Royal Caribbean cooperated with requests, but the ship had already sailed on to St. Martin, then St. Thomas, before returning to San Juan on March 28th. Every hour that passed made the evidence harder to collect and the trail harder to follow. But what started happening on land in the days and months that followed changed the shape of this case completely. A taxi driver in Curaçao came forward and told investigators that on the very morning Amy disappeared, the same morning the Rhapsody of the Seas was docking at port, he had seen a young woman sprinting barefoot through the parking lot near the waterfront. She was frantic, he said. She was desperately searching for a phone. He recognized her green eyes later from the reward posters that began going up around the island. He said she had looked terrified, not confused, terrified. In August 1998, 5 months after she vanished, a Canadian computer engineer named David Carmichael was walking on a beach in Curaçao when a young woman started trying to catch his eye. She was tanned, he said. She smoked. She had a Tasmanian devil tattoo on her shoulder. He was close enough to reach out and touch her. Before she could say a word, 2 men flanking her gripped her arms and pulled her toward a nearby cafe. Carmichael followed them inside. She was gone. He has said in interviews that he thinks about that moment every single day. That not one day passes when he does not replay it and wonder what would have happened if he had moved faster. In January 1999, a United States Navy petty officer named Bill Hefner came forward with a story that stopped investigators cold. His ship had docked in Curaçao and he had ended up at a bar in the area. A woman approached him and leaned in close. She told him, quietly and urgently, that her name was Amy Bradley. She said she was being held against her will. She begged him for help. He did not report it at the time because he was afraid of the professional consequences of admitting he had been in a brothel while on military duty. By the time he came forward, months had passed, and the moment was unreachable. In 2005, 7 years after Amy disappeared, a woman in a restroom in Barbados approached a tourist and said her name was Amy. She asked the tourist in a low, desperate voice whether she could help her see her children that no one in Amy's family had ever known about. The tourist did not understand what was happening and left. Only later, after seeing Amy's face on a missing persons report, did she contact authorities. The FBI followed up. The lead could not be confirmed. That same year, the Bradley family received photographs anonymously. The images showed a woman on an adult website based in the Caribbean who looked, according to Eva Bradley, shockingly like her daughter. The hair was different, but the resemblance was close enough that Eva said she believed it could be Amy. Investigators were never able to identify the woman in the photos or trace where they had come from. And then, years later, analysts monitoring Amy's family website noticed something unsettling. Activity on the site was spiking in the Curaçao region, and the spikes kept clustering around family holidays and significant dates, as though whoever was accessing it knew when those dates meant something. In one case, investigators traced a suspicious access point to a device on a boat sitting off the western coast of Barbados. They pursued it. It led nowhere, but the pattern never fully went away. 3 theories have circled this case for over 27 years. The first is that Amy fell or jumped from the balcony. The cruise ship's own director pointed to this for years, and investigators noted that a table on the balcony had been pushed up against the railing. Something some people read as evidence that someone climbed over it. But Amy's family has rejected this completely from day one. She had no history of depression. She had everything to go home to. She was a lifeguard and a swim coach who had been in the water her entire life. And the Coast Guard searched for 4 days and found nothing. Not a single trace of anyone in that ocean. The second theory is that Alistair Douglas knows more than he has ever said. He was the last person confirmed on camera with Amy. A witness reported seeing the two of them together on an elevator at 6 a.m. The very moment Ron Bradley found her chair empty, and then saw Douglas walking past alone 15 minutes later. Douglas was questioned by the FBI, admitted to dancing with Amy, and denied any involvement in her disappearance. His polygraph test came back inconclusive. He was never charged. The case has never fully moved past him, and years later his own daughter publicly said she has serious doubts about her father's complete innocence. The third theory is the one that has always felt the most like the truth to the people who loved Amy. That she was taken. That someone on that ship, or waiting at that port, had been watching her. That the open balcony was not the end of her story, but the beginning of a nightmare she has been living ever since. Every sighting, across nearly a decade, lands in the same part of the Caribbean. A woman running barefoot looking for a phone. A woman being pulled away from a stranger on a beach before she could speak. A woman whispering her own name in the dark and begging for help. A woman in a bathroom asking to see children she had never mentioned. None of it confirmed. None of it easy to dismiss. Ron and Iva Bradley have never stopped. They have sat through every television interview, every tip line call, every dead end and false hope. The FBI case remains officially open. The reward for information leading to Amy's recovery and the identification and conviction of anyone responsible now stands at up to $100,000. Amy Lynn Bradley would be 51 years old today. She might have finished that master's degree. She might have built a career, a home, a life full of the things she was so clearly moving toward. She might be somewhere right now, somewhere close to that same stretch of Caribbean water, hoping that the right person finally hears her name and recognizes it. A deck chair on a cruise ship balcony, a pair of sandals left behind. 27 years of questions that no official investigation has been able to close. What really happened to Amy Lynn Bradley? If you know anything, a detail, something you heard, something that never quite made sense, leave it in the comments below. Cold cases break because someone finally says the thing they have been holding back. Maybe that is you. And if this story stayed with you, share it, because Ron and Eva are still waiting, and keeping Amy's name alive is the very least any of us can do. Subscribe if you want more cases like this one. Every single week, a story that deserves to be told.